Hi, Erica. How are you today?
Hi, good, Jesse. How are you?
Great. It's good to see you.
Nice to see you as well. Living the dream.
Absolutely. So,
Yes.
this is our second recorded call, and we are
Yes.
here to talk about some controversial topics and have a riveting conversation. So, do you want to just kind of introduce yourself and let anybody who doesn't know who you are kind of know who you are?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. My name is Erica Suzanne. I'm a matchmaker, celebrity matchmaker, as they say, but I work nationally. I've been in the industry for about 25 years, and um, I've seen all sorts of things and changes along the way with dating, and I am I'm ready to speak up a little bit. So I found you, and I'm so pumped because we can banter. We have a few things to say, and I really respect you. So I'm really excited to have these conversations. So take it away. Tell us about you.
Awesome. Yeah. So my name is Jesse Busch, and I'm a certified life coach through International Coaching Federation, and I'm a certified No More Mr. Nice Guy coach through Dr. Robert Glover, who's the author of No More Mr. Nice Guy, and he's my mentor. So just kind of as a disclaimer, if you're familiar, anybody's familiar with his work, and I say a lot of things that come from out of his work, just know I'm giving him full credit, and he's an advocate for me, and I'm an advocate for him and his work. And so what I do, I was a chef most of my life. I was in the military. I was in the Army for 7 years, and just kind of through my own personal development and challenges that I was having in my own life, just naturally kind of came into this space of being a men's coach. And I definitely deal dating and relationships are probably the primary driver that bring men into this work. And, that's how they find themselves working with me. And so I think that we kind of, you and I have very similar belief systems and a lot of things to say that can, like I said, it can be a little bit controversial, but I think that we
Yep.
don't package it in a way there where it's not, we're not intending to be abrasive or any of that stuff. So, quickly becoming one of my favorite people, and I'm just really excited
Ah,
about this friendship and partnership, and interested to see where it goes. So,
awesome.
and that kind of
Thank you.
brings us to what brings us here today. So, what we're going to do is kind of exciting. It's a new venture for both of us, and we're going to go. And there's a viral TikTok that Eric has sent me, and we are going to unpack it a little bit. And
Yeah.
I am curious, Erica, about what about this specific TikTok made you want to send it to me, and what was your reaction to it emotionally, and just what did it bring up for you?
Yeah. Yeah. So, um, with matchmaking, I work with a very um, select group of people that are successful, and they are educated and driven and accomplished and know what they want, um, including women and men. Um, and what I've seen over the years, with women specifically, as they have really come into their careers and their own and their just own identity, um, there's expectations and a slightly angry tone that women have in dating, and they're not getting their needs met, as most of them say, by the men out there in the world. And I think that there's things that are happening that the reason why they're not getting their needs met is they're not necessarily communicating it very well, to men. And then men kind of do a reverse, kind of role. Either they're going to be a total asshole and douche, or they're going to be a nice guy. we have these different terms that are floating around, the toxic nice guy, or the the narcissist, all these terms that really, quite frankly, 25 years ago were not discussed as much. And I'm wondering really why, kind of how that has taken on. But this video really is, I hear it all the time. And so I sent this to you because I want to unpack it with you as a men's coach dealing with all of these things. And what can we learn from it? And what can we take as just small steps and nuggets to take step forward to with women and men, on how we can recognize and react and act to our counterparts. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. No, and I love that. And I think what's really neat about what you and I are doing is that we're having this conversation together, and you're not saying men are the enemy, and I'm not saying women are the enemy. And we're coming together and we're saying, okay, we want people to be happy ultimately. Yes. Right. Yes. We want people to have fulfilling relationships. We want people getting laid. We want people having
Absolutely.
fun. Right. We want all of those things for everybody. And so, I hope that people understand that that is a place that we're coming from. And some of the things that I think that we'll talk about will be offensive to some people. But I think that at the end of the day, the message that we're wanting to convey is that a lot of people, particularly women who identify as feminine and men who identify as masculine, are really dissatisfied with the way that things are going right now in the dating and relationship world. And we want to come to a common ground and find a solution for that, right? So anybody who doesn't identify in those spaces, or if you have a different belief system that's like working out really well for you and you're happy and content in that, I support that. I will protect it. I will advocate for it. All of that stuff. We are talking to a very specific group of people here. And so, if any of this stuff is offensive to anybody, that's okay. I have no, I'm going to say what I believe and what my belief systems are. I'm not here to convert anybody or get anybody to, but I think that we want to come to a common ground and a common solution for these people that we work with and that we see are having issues.
Well, there's 8 billion people on this planet, so we're not called to everyone, and
Absolutely.
It's okay. And this is why we do what we do. People come to us for our input and advice because we have proven track records. And so that is just what we're going by. And it's okay. If you don't agree, that's okay.
Absolutely.
We're okay with it.
Right. All right. So the video or the TikTok that we're going to unpack is by a woman named, I believe her name is Ashley, and she has an account called The Narc in Me, and she's identifies as a survivor of narcissistic abuse. And well, are you ready? You ready to just jump right into it?
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it.
All right.
I'm a survivor of narcissistic abuse. And if you've been on social media at all this week, you've seen the screenshots of the article in the Psychology magazine saying that men are lonely in record numbers, single men. I can't speak for all women, but I can speak for myself and what I believe to be happening. We are done with men who treat us like shit. We are done with men who lie to us. We are done with men who manipulate us, who gaslight us, whose words don't match their actions. We are done with men who think that we should be their mothers, like that video going around of where are all the women who want to make lunches and rub our backs.
Okay, so this is kind of the first little bit that I want to unpack.
Yep.
I'd like to hear from you and like, what is your kind of like feelings and reactions so far, or insights on just a little bit of the clip that we've watched so far?
Right. So I believe that narcissistic abuse is real. I believe that she had that experience. I believe that there was major pain that she went through. No denying that. I hear the anger in her voice, and so I want to just say, hey, that's part of the process of healing and becoming, right? So I'm not disregarding any of it. And so I'm sorry for that, and that's my first point. But my second point is that she does sound so angry. And so when we are sharing a message, when we come from a place of anger, and real, just it's hard to hear the message because I hear her it's just angry tone. So that's what I kind of just want to just calm that so we can talk about her points. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And, as a man, I was telling you before we started recording our call, I had a visceral reaction to this and felt, almost as I was being chastised by my mother. And
yeah,
that, and that's okay. I can be uncomfortable. That's fine. But I think for me, the big issues in just the few seconds of this clip that I have, coming from my experience, and I just want to echo what you said, and that, I believe that she's I'm not here to question whether she was victimized or not. That's not my, and, ultimately I know a lot of the message that she's putting out there comes from her own personal experience and her own personal wounding. And, and so I recognize that, and we're kind of taking it out of context a little bit because we don't, we're not addressing her entire situation. It's really just the message that we are wanting to address here. And so for me, the first thing that stands out is, again, it's this issue of the separation between men and women, and it almost seems as though it's a victory cry that there are lonely men out there. And that's one of the things that I have an issue with, is I don't think it's something that we should be happy about, and I don't think it's something that is good for anybody to be advocating for or happy about, that half of our society is unhappy. And so that's the biggest thing for me. Not the biggest thing, actually, the next thing is the biggest thing. So I read the article in Psychology Today, and what, from my experience, this segment of our population that is that are these lonely men typically are not the men that she's about to describe. In fact, the men that she's about to describe are going to watch this video and they're going to laugh, or they're just going to go, oh, here's another assertive woman, and they're just going to flip right through it, right? The men who are actually going to stop and listen to this, they have been getting the messaging their entire lives that it is bad to be a man. The guy, and they're going to try to figure out, how can I not be this type of man so that I can make women happy, so that I can get my needs met and not be lonely. And so, I did watch one other video from her. The next video that she posted was a video about, would she go and approach her ex's new girlfriend and confront her about this guy being a narcissist and being abusive. And so that just kind of validates what I'm saying. It is not the narcissist, or what we're calling toxic men, who are lonely in our current society. It's the guys that you don't notice. It's invisible men. It's nice guys. It's the guys that you're happy to be friends with, but you're not interested in having a romantic relationship with. Right. These are the guys that would never think about doing any of the things that you're about to describe and unpack. Those are the men who are lonely. And if the men are lonely and the women are not, well, who's dating all of the women? Right? It's these guys that she's about to describe that the women are being drawn to. Right. Yes. And so for me, it's it's using, it's just packaging all men together and saying, and I wish that what she said, what she's saying is true about, we're done with these type of men. That would be great. It would be great for news for the guys that I work with if they're like, what I'm going to start, if women were saying, what I'm going to start doing is basing, you know, people that I choose to be in relationships with based upon their character, rather than what they can provide to me, the lifestyle that they can give me, or how they make me feel in my girly parts. If I'm going to base my primary, you know, qualifications off from a man's character, then I'm a full supporter of that, right? But that's
Right.
not what I'm seeing, and it's not based upon my experience. And so,
Right.
so one other thing, you know, she talks about, you know, guys needing to be, you know, their words need to meet their actions need to meet their words and all of that stuff. And I completely agree. And there's, you know, it is a big challenge for a lot of these guys because, and like the guys that are going to go and watch this video, they're going to say, you know, they're going to try to go and figure out, how do I present this image of this guy that she's describing that she wants, or how do I not be the guy that she's describing? And so they're going to put up this front, and so that they can try to get their needs met. It is not intentional, but it is manipulation, right? So I agree. And one of the things that Dr. Glover says is that men need to get to rejection quickly, right? We need to be what you see is what you get kind of guy, and be authentic and put yourself out there. But for a lot of the guys, they risk rejection. And for a lot of these guys, that's a fate worse than death, right? And so they put up this front, they try to conform to what they believe that women want them to be, and they've been doing that in their entire lives, because this is the messaging that they've been getting from their mothers and from society, and all of that stuff is, don't be this kind of guy. But then so they become the opposite of that, and now they're being called incels and betas and all of this stuff, and their loneliness is being celebrated. And for me and the work that I'm involved in, that's a major issue.
Oh, it's just it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. But what I see is, we all, every single one of us, have mommy and daddy wounds. All of us.
Absolutely.
And going through relationships, obviously those things come to fruition, right? Like we have those issues that evolve and come about. And what I specifically talk to my clients about before I start working with them is really be very clear on what you want in your own life, right? And also what you're going to offer your man or woman, or and vice versa. And when you have that clarity, and when you're practicing that on a daily basis, you are naturally going to energetically exude that. And so hopefully, right, in turn, you're going to attract that. And what my fear is that is happening is that women and men are reacting to these sorts of emotions that come from the relationships, that come from the wounds and the traumas, right? And then they're energetically exuding that. So this woman who I know is in pain and has had pain with their relationship is coming off very angry and no more, I'm not going to do any of that, no more. And so how are you going to go in there, right, and be like, hey, I can do this? Because she's going to be like, prove it to me, right? Like, that's the attitude. You have to prove it to her. Whereas when you're healed from a relationship and you know what you don't want and you know what you do want, and you're super loving and happy, and you are like going in there and experiencing life, then you can be like, yeah, I like this. I understand what you went through, but this is not me, and this is what I can offer you, and this is who I am. it's going to be very hard for someone to go in there after this guy and be like, hey, I'm your guy, because she's used to this douchebag, right? Like,
Absolutely.
she's
Yeah,
wired
no.
to have douchebag guys in her life. So when a nice guy comes in, she's going to be like, yeah, no, I
Right.
don't think so.
Exactly.
Does that make
right.
sense? Like that's
100%.
it's like
Yes.
a cycle.
Right. Yes, absolutely. And I completely agree. And then, when she talks about, guys, well, a couple things. One, yes, there's not a good system in place for helping men understand that the relationship that they're going to have moving forward with women in intimate relationships is very different than the relationship that they had with their mothers, right? I agree that that is a challenge and that that's a problem, and that this is something that needs to be addressed. The guys need to understand, like, your wife or your girlfriend or your partner is not going to do the things for you that your mom did, right? And
Yes.
and so that's one thing. But the other part of it is, she's upset at this guy for saying, where are all the women that are going to pack our lunches and give us back rubs? And for me, my perspective on that is like, what is wrong with the man saying what he wants out of a relationship? He's not saying women need to be, I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen the video that she's talking about, but he's not, what I'm hearing is he's saying, hey, where's all the women that would like to have this type of dynamic with me? Are there any out there? And there's plenty of women out there that would, but the problem is when it's the expectation is there, it's not communicated, and there's no negotiation that goes on, right? Where it's just like,
sure,
this is what I expect. Why are women not like this? Why are not all women like this, right? And then getting into a relationship, and prior to getting into that relationship, in the courting phase, having those conversations and either saying, is this something that this is the dynamic that I'm looking for, or is this a dynamic that interests you? And if it's not, then we can go our separate ways. But you can't tell me that there's zero women out there that would be happy to be in a relationship, and part of their role in that relationship is to pack lunches and give back rubs. Like,
totally. It's all about the communication and the clearly stated desire, right? Like,
yes.
That is not what is happening. Women, however, can clearly state their desires, whereas men kind of can't anymore. Like, it would be frowned upon to go to one of your salsa nights and say, hey, I really want to date you, and I'm hoping that you'll make dinners and pack me lunches and keep the house clean. Right. However, a woman's like, hey, like, I would love for you to give me gifts and give me special trips and make me feel like I'm the most important woman in the world, so you have only eyes for me, and this is what you're going to do for me, and this and this and this and this and this.
Correct.
But you can't state that what your desires are.
Right.
That is the problem. That's the problem.
Absolutely, 100%. Okay, so let's bring up the TikTok again, and we'll pack our next little bit here.
We're not your parents. We are done with men saying that they don't want to take care of us, that they want a strong woman. So we go out and have this great career and become successful, and then you're threatened by our success.
Okay, so this is one of my favorite parts. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump in here. So she mentioned previously in her video about gaslighting. And this is a prime example. If anybody's not clear on what gaslighting is, this is it to a T. And again, I'm not attacking this woman, but this is 100% gaslighting. This is not men's message. Men are not saying, I don't want to take care of you. I want you to go out there and get a successful job and get a career. And I want you, any of that stuff. This is a bad message that was sold to women from the feminist movement that says if you go out there and you become not equal to men but the same as men, that you will be fulfilled, and that men will admire and respect you the same way that you admire and respect a man for his status. And so, you know, again, this is and now women are getting upset because the promises that they were sold by go out there, get education, get a job, you know, get status, and you'll find fulfillment. It was a bad message, and they're not getting the results that were promised to them from this. So this is not men's message. This was never men's message. If you can find me an example of a man saying, what I really want is a strong, successful woman, then, I mean, and this is where so in my perspective, we want strong women in the same way that we want soft men.
Mhm.
We want men emotionally available. We want men to be more, you know, we want them to be soft when it's appropriate and in the appropriate places. But we don't want soft men in general. And we want strong women. We want educated women. We want women to be leaders in the appropriate places. And I understand that that is not a popular message, but again, my perspective from my experience is that we want strong men the same way that we want soft men, or we want strong women the same way we want soft men.
Yes. I mean, I believe that at the end of the day, right? Like if you look at a relationship, at the end of the day, it's when your head hits the pillow and you're talking to your person, right? What do you want from that relationship? All the rest of it is, it's ridiculous because everyone's going to have different lifestyles. Everyone's going to have different desires. Everyone's going to live in a different house, in a different circumstance, and come from different families. Like at the end of the day, let's talk about the relationship, what you want, how you want to communicate, what do you want to receive in your heart and give to somebody else. It's not about the job. It's not about any of this, because it just really doesn't matter at the end of the day. We saw that during COVID when everything shut down and we were locked in place. What could money buy? Money couldn't buy your place, get out of jail card. You were stuck in the house, left to your own devices, stuck with your spouse, whether you like it or not, right? Like at the end of the day, I think a man wants someone that's nurturing, that's understanding, that's going to love him and communicate with him. A woman wants someone that is strong, that's going to take care of her when she's scared and have a sense of security for her, and make sure that in COVID times, right? Like you're locked into each other and you're like, okay, this is okay. We'll get through it, right? We'll get through it together. It's not about that you're a president of a company. Yay, awesome. That is so great. And I think men want someone that's passionate and has independence, but has also a priority to him and his needs, as she wants him to have a priority to hers.
Right. And another thing that came up for me and with this part of it was that men are not threatened by your status. They're not threatened by your income. They're not threatened by your title or your education or anything like that. But in an intimate relationship, a strong, healthy, masculine man is not going to fight you for the masculine role in the relationship. So it's great that that's how you're showing up in the world and that's how you're showing up at work. But like when in intimate relationships, like I want to be the boy and I want you to be the girl.
Yes. 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 And And that doesn't mean that you can't state your desires clearly. Communication is very, very clear, but you can communicate it in a way that your man's going to be like, I want to take care of you, right? Like that's a masculine man. That's a masculine trait in action, you know. And also, you know, a woman can state, hey, I want to do this and I want to take care of you in just this loving, nurturing way. It doesn't have to be about any status, any I don't know. It drives me nuts. It drives me nuts.
Absolutely.
I have one example that I really would love to give because it's a couple that I put together and they were amazing, right? Like they had chemistry, they had an amazing time together. And about the 5th date, she asked him to come over for dinner. She wanted to make him dinner and, you know, whatever, show him her house and all the things. And so he went over to dinner, made dinner. That's awesome. Whatever. Had a nice time. He left there feeling a little depleted. They did it again, probably a week later. She had him over and she was taking care of him, right? She made the dinner. She did the dishes. She did all the things. And he said, hey, can I please do something? I want to take out the garbage. I want to do something. She's like, no, sit there. And he literally, when he left the house, he called me and he goes, I can't do it. I have zero role in her life. I have zero place in her life. She wanted me to just sit there.
Yeah.
And I can't just do that. And that's a tiny example.
Yeah.
But it's really real and how it affected him.
For sure.
And she was probably just showing, you know, how she can do all the things, right?
Right.
But you don't need to do all the things.
No, exactly. Yeah. He didn't feel needed. He didn't feel like he had a role, exactly what you were saying. And, you know, and I mean, there is, you know, and a lot of men have a very hard time receiving. We haven't been brought up that way. And it's not the, you know, and I would, you know, although it seems like this like nurturing thing, she's doing. She's in action. He's sitting. She's in her masculine. He's in his feminine. It's this role reversal, and there's no, and there's, you know, and he was, you know, it probably made him feel. And he couldn't probably even describe why he felt this way. You said he felt depleted. He felt emasculated. Like he felt unnecessary, and
Yes.
and that's how so many men are feeling in our current society.
Yes.
You know, so
yes.
All right, so let's bring her back up.
We are done with men who are not emotionally available, who take every single comment that we make as argumentative. We are done with men saying that we are too emotional, labeling us as crazy. We are done with men that we can't actually express our feelings to because you flip the script and say that everything was our fault, that we are the problems. We are done with men who continue to spread lies about us to make themselves look better.
So for me, she's using a catchphrase here that has become very, very popular, about men need to become more emotionally available. And for me, it's a little bit too ambiguous to really address in a conscious way. And so there's a few different things that go along with this. One, it is, as men and women, men need to stop wishing that women were more like men and less emotional, and women need to stop wishing that men were more like women and being more emotional. That's one thing, right? So it's, what you're saying is emotional availability means that he cries on your shoulder on a regular basis. I wholeheartedly disagree with that. If what you're saying is that you want him to be more present and comfortable with your emotions, I am wholeheartedly for that. And if you're saying that men are too detached from their emotions and they need to find safe places to be able to express and identify their emotions, I 100% agree with that. But this catchphrase of men need to become more emotionally available is, I think it's too ambiguous. Like, what do you mean by that? Because what people are hearing, and I've heard this from different places, both from men and women, is that men need to be given permission to cry. And from my experience, men aren't looking for permission to be emotional. What they need is a safe place to do that in. And, you know, in the intimate relationship is typically not the safest place for men to do that. Most men's experiences is when they have done that in an intimate relationship, is that it is typically used against them at some point in time. Or, you know, and it's, you know, I was working with a guy today. He's the most emotionally available man that I know. And it was never the thing that attracted women to him. It wasn't until he started to learn to embrace his masculinity, to set the tone, to take the lead, to be present, to really to really embody his masculinity. And now this guy, you know, he's got more feminine attention than he knows what to do with, right? And so it was not the emotional availability that was drawing women to him. It's him embracing his masculinity, right? And so at the end of the video, she's going to say, when are men going to become more emotionally available so that we want to be with you? If what you're asking for is you want connection, then say that. But
yes.
Don't say that you want, don't use this ambiguous term of emotional availability. If tell us specifically what it is that you're asking for, and then we can determine whether that is something that's going to be healthy for us or not, right?
Right. Again, communication and clarity.
Correct.
Right? Like, literally, it's if you break down successful relationships, it's really quite simple, right? You're clear on what you want and what you don't want, and you can clearly communicate it, and you clearly are living an authentic life.
Perfect. Yes, exactly. And then, you know, as far as like, you know, men, I agree. Men, and men are leveling up. Like we are, you know, I can't go to a coffee shop without running into a man who is in a men's group or is facilitating a men's group or is in men's work. You know,
Men are listening. They are hearing the message that it's
Mhm.
getting out there.
Correct.
But again, I agree with you. Historically, men are not open to their feelings. They don't talk about their feelings. That's just, again, they haven't been taught that, and or if they have been taught that, they're too emotional, then therefore they're not in their masculine according to women, right?
Exactly, right.
They're too feeling, like
Right.
they're too
nice. So I encourage guys, this is one of the things that I encourage guys, and this is one of the reasons why I think that men's groups and men's circles are so important, and why I run these groups, these in-person groups, is because this is best played out and experimented with other men. I am not turned off by a guy crying, right? I had a guy crying today. A couple of weeks ago, I met out with a guy at a coffee shop, and you know, I just held him while he cried. Right? I'm not uncomfortable with men's emotions, and learning that it's safe to do this within, you know, around other men. I think in my experience has been the healthiest way to address this. And I had a guy come and do a breathwork workshop with my men's group, and there were literally men in there wailing. Right. And again, men are not looking for permission. They're looking for a safe place to do this.
Sure.
And,
absolutely.
And so that's a big part of it. The other part of it is she said, we're done with men, sharing our emotions with men. And so I think that one way that men become more comfortable with women's emotions and not trying to fix things, right? Being able to just hold space and let a woman, be emotional is by getting in touch with their own emotions first and understanding that, that I don't, and that's another big part of it is like a lot of guys, as soon as a woman's upset or she's crying, they want to fix it, right? And understanding like our default is go to fix. And what I try to work with men and tell them, your default should be hold space. And then ask if, like, are you looking for, because sometimes she does want your masculine wisdom or she wants your whatever, like she does want you to help come up with a solution. But I think the default for us needs to switch into holding space rather than offering a solution. And so that's one thing that
I agree.
But the other thing about it is men are constant. If you look at any, not all of it, but the majority of men's work that is going on out there right now is men are being told, like, you need to look at yourself as the problem. Like it's something I tell my guys all the time, assume that you're the problem, right? And because that's, if it's God, if it's women, if it's society that are all against you, you're screwed. There's nothing you can do about any of that. The only thing that if you're the problem, then we can address that, right? But if it's all these other things, just give up. Like, because there's nothing you can do about that.
Right.
But what women are being told is you have a broken picker. They're not saying, like, where are you contributing to the toxicity of this relationship? They're being told you're picking the wrong guys, right? And then it comes down to, I'm single because there's not enough good men out there. Rather than
I hear that all the time.
Right. Rather than I'm toxic, I'm, and these are so so if it's appropriate for us to ask men to be more emotionally available, is it appropriate for us to ask women to be more emotionally regulated? And she's saying we're tired of men saying like that we're crazy, right? And that's something that men say a lot is women are crazy, right? But this comes back to this communication. I'm going to use an example of one of my clients that came up yesterday. He just recently moved in with his girlfriend. She gave him a honey-do list. One of the things on that honey-do list was to sand the door. And he even asked her, like, is it okay if I do the sanding of the door today? And
I had a nice little fly that flew in my face. Sorry.
That was like a frog or something. All right. But he even asked her, is it okay if I do the sanding today? And she said, yeah, go ahead. So he went and he came back and he's sanding the door, and then he can tell that she's like, because she's doing the passive aggressive, huffing and puffing around the house. He can tell that she's upset. And so he approaches her and asks her what's wrong, and nothing's wrong. And then, later on in the day, she's all worked up and upset, and he's like, and then he's like, what is wrong? Like, what is going on with you? And she goes, why did you decide to do that today? And in his mind, he's doing everything right? Like he's doing the things that she asked him to do. He even ran it by her, like, is it okay if I do this today? She says yes. And then she's upset, and he's got absolutely no idea what is going on. No idea, right? And now she's all upset because he decided to do this project today, right? To a logical, rational creature that is working off from data and not feelings, right? So that's what I talk about a lot with men is we work off from data and we're data driven, not. And so he's looking at all of this information, and to a data driven person, that is insane. Why are you upset? I ran this by you. I'm doing the thing that you asked me to do. Right. And when they and then it kind of, and then he was like, we're going to go run to Costco. Do you want to come with me? She's like, no, I'm going to stay here, because she's all upset from the fact that he did what he asked her to do and the thing that he ran by her. Then he comes home, and it comes out that like she was upset because she wanted to connect with him that day. Like he had been busy the day before, and then he had his men's group and stuff like that the next day. And she was planning on connecting with him that day. Right. Mm-hmm. And so rather than saying, you know what, I would prefer that you did that at another time, and what I'm really looking for is connection with you. What she did to get her connection was start a fight. Right. And in our perspective, that is insane. That is crazy. Why are you starting problems for no reason when all you had to do was communicate? I guarantee you, knowing this guy, that if she had said, hey, what I want to do is connect with you, he'd be like, cool, let's put the sander away. The only reason he's doing that is because he thought it was going to make her happy. Right. And he's being nice. He's doing what she asked him to do. And then he gets this negative reaction, and it's this double whammy, because not only is she upset, but he thought that he was making her happy by doing what she had asked him to do, running it by her, all of this stuff. And that, in our perspective, from a man's perspective, that's crazy. So if it's okay for women to ask men to be more emotionally available, is it okay for us to ask women to be a little bit more emotionally regulated? And just because you're having a feeling, to look at the full picture, to be a little bit more logical, to be a little more analytical about it, and to express to us exactly what it is that you're wanting and needing, right? Because the way that she went and got what she needed, which was connection, right? And I even told him, I was like, even when you went to Costco and she stayed home, she was still getting what she needed, because she knew you were thinking about her, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. And so it's like, yeah, do men need to stop saying that women are crazy? Yeah. But at the same time, can we ask you to stop being crazy? Can we ask you to like communicate with us and tell us exactly what it is that you want, and to not.
I want a date. I need time with you. Yes.
Yes.
Oh
yes. I want a connection. I want to feel you. Like, I want your presence. I want you here today. I need you here today. Right. But that's the problem, is it's the same thing with the men not being emotionally expressive. It's vulnerable. I'm putting myself out there. I'm putting myself in a place to be rejected. I'm making it known that like I need you, and like that is a vulnerable place, right? But I guarantee you, that guy, he would have got the biggest smile on his face if she had said, you know what? What I really would like today is you. I would love to have your presence. I would love to have your connection, and I would just want to be with you today. Like, you know how happy that would have made that guy?
Totally, but why don't they say that? Like I'm a woman, and I'm guilty of doing that very thing that woman did, right? Like I can get all crabby if my husband's gone a lot, like what, you know, and I just want him to know, hey, I want you to want to spend time with me. Whereas he's all doing all of his things, right? To take care of me and take care of our life. Right. He's thinking he's doing all the things. But, you know, if he's got too much, or he's doing all the things too much, and he's not just being here, sitting on the couch, watching a TV show with me, then, you know, so I am guilty of that, of like not communicating that, because I want the guy to know that automatically. And that's my fault. I acknowledge that that's my fault. And that's where I'm saying, hey, when you know you are clear on what you want, you have to communicate. And if you establish that early on in your relationship, not 5 years down the road, not a year down the road, all of a sudden you're like, hey, this is, you know, I'm switching up the game right now. Then that's where it breaks apart, because you already have an established role. You already have established patterns. All of a sudden, a year later, you're like, hey, why are you never home? Well, it was okay for me to be home, you know, gone, you know, for the last year.
Correct.
Why didn't you say anything then? No, right up front. This is what we need to know, both men and women.
Right. Yes. And you
That's
know,
where it's going wrong. But but also the messaging
right.
is also a part of it. Like, you can't just be like, I need this from you, and not be able to hear it back.
Correct. That's where this idea of negotiation comes into play, right? Where it's like, I need X amount of, and nobody wants to do that, because to your point, we all have these expectations of our partners and of the other sex. And if I have to ask you for it, then it doesn't mean anything. If I have to ask you for your time and attention, then it's inadequate. Bullshit. Get over it. Ask for what you need. Ask for what you want. Do it early, do it often, and communicate what your wants and needs are. Do not expect your partner, whether it's a man or a woman, to predict what your needs are and all of that. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like,
absolutely. And that's the masculine being able to have this woman say, hey, I really want some time with you, and being able to feel safe to ask that, and not say, hey, you wanted me to do the door, I'm going to do the door. And he's recognizing, hey, I need to spend some time with her. Like, that is the emotional availability piece that we're coming into play. Being able to have some foresight and recognize what this woman is saying, that's what she's asking. Emotional availability and emotional maturity.
Correct.
You know,
yes.
Emotional immaturity would be like, hey, I'm doing the thing that you asked me to do, and then starting a fight. And then that, like, it's not even about the door. It's about the time together.
Correct. Yes,
and making each other happy.
Right. And that requires a certain level of being able to be introspective and saying, oh, wait, I'm feeling this some kind of way about the fact that he's doing the door. But really what I'm looking for is connection, right? And that takes an ability. And so we all have to become less reactive and become more responsive, right? And so men are very good at compartmentalizing and regulating their emotions. It's an asset. It is. We don't want overly emotional men who are, we don't need cops and firefighters and soldiers, like, having emotional meltdowns. We need men who can be emotionally regulated, and we need those same men to be able to be emotionally available, right?
Yes.
At the same time, like, we don't want women the same way. We don't want women being super compartmentalized and all of that kind of stuff. But we also need a little bit of that. Like, we need you to put a little bit of space between your feelings and your reaction.
Yes.
And to unpack it a little bit and understand, because this is at the core of a lot of what's going on right now is we're saying, like, the other person, the other gender is the problem. Like, you're making me feel this way, rather than making it known what you need. And like, it's a good test for, is this does this person really care about my wants and needs? Right? I've expressed to them, like, I want connection. I've been very clear about the fact that I'm wanting connection. You're giving them an opportunity to either show up for you or tell you that your needs and wants are not important to me. That's far more valuable than them being able to read your mind and predict what you want.
Nobody's a mind reader. No, I mean, there are mind readers out there, I'm sure. However, most people aren't, right? And I was just talking about this with my 19-year-old son who's starting to date, right? And I said to him, hey, make sure you treat your girl to a nice dinner. And he's like, why am I treating her to a nice dinner? Why aren't we splitting the check?
Oh, wow.
And I said, are you bad? I mean, what? No. Coming from a matchmaker and teaching my son, I was like, no, you're picking up the bill there, son.
Right.
And he goes, well, why? Because women want this 50-50, being treated the same and blah, 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 blah. This is the messaging that he's hearing.
Right.
So if he's 19, how long has this messaging been going on? And now how do you expect men to act? Right? So again, it just goes to the problem. Not all women, mind paying the bill. Not all women want you to pay the bill. It doesn't matter. It's what you want and communicating that clearly.
Correct.
That's it.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Right. And yeah, 100%. And again, if that's not what you want, then yeah, like you said, stating it clearly.
Communicate it. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. But you can't have both ways. You can't want this man, strong, strapping man to take care of you, but then just totally like squash him at every turn all day, every day.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's, we've talked about just like the opening the door and paying for the check, you know what I mean? And it's just like that alone is just this super, I don't know. It's this topic that like people get super upset about, but it's just like, okay, you want a masculine guy, or maybe, but
what does that mean? What does that mean?
Right.
Exactly. And that's clearly defined before you go out and look for your boyfriend or girlfriend.
Correct.
What do you want?
Yeah. And something that, when I'm out on a date, I'm going to go and open the door, and if if I can feel like there's friction or resistance to that, and I'm going to pick up the bill and I'm going to pay it. And if she like keeps insisting that we split it, I'll split it with her, but we're not going out again.
Well, and it was just your analogy of your dancing, right? Like if she's insisting on leading your dance every single time, sure, that's great, but that's not the partner you're looking for.
Right. Yeah.
Which
and
is okay.
I'm not mad at you.
8 billion people all on the planet. You're not called for everybody. If you can't clarify exactly what you want, then you're not going to get it. And what's happening with this video with this woman is she's reliving some trauma from parental things and more relationship things, and so she's reliving it instead of handling it, squashing it, and moving on and being clear. Okay, I understand that was traumatic for you. This is your experiences. Okay, internalize it, learn from it, and go on and be very clear on what you want the next time. Not be angry at every single man, because not every single man is going to be like this.
Right. Exactly. Correct. Yes. And, and again, I'm not victim blaming, but it's kind of like, if you're hanging out on the shooting range and you get shot, it's like I'm not going to sit there and tell you, that you're a terrible person for being out on the shooting range, but, we're going to address your wound and we're going to take care of that. But like, maybe stop walking out on shooting ranges.
Sure,
like, that guy wasn't a narcissist when he was a narcissist when you got together. Like, what about you is drawn to that type of man?
Energy.
And if that's
energy.
If that's consistently your experience, right? What about that type of man is attractive to you? And if that's your experience with men, if this is what you think men are like, and what I'm here to tell you is it is absolutely not true. It is a very small percentage of men that are the guys that you are describing. So if this is your consistent experience, like, stop going on the shooting range, right? Stop and
Jesse, you hit the controversial button. No one wants to take accountability for who they're attracting or who they're
right. And again, I don't know anything about this woman, but I can tell you from my experience, a lot of times what's going and happening is these women are going and they are getting therapy, right? But what the therapists are teaching them, and the therapists are typically well-educated, well-earning single women. And typically what they're teaching them is how to become more independent, and your picker's broken.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's like, for decades now, we have been trying to treat codependency with independence rather than learning how to become interdependent. And for women, like, the message that they're getting is your picker is broken. And so, I don't need a man. Right.
I don't
That's
need
the
a man.
independence. Right. That's the independence portion of this. Right. And then it's like, okay, well, that's fine that you don't need a man, and, I mean, yeah, that's, but don't be surprised that you're
That's a whole
single.
other thing. Like, yes, right? Right. Right. I'd rather be single and alone than deal with all the things, which
Correct.
you're always going to have all the things until you deal with them.
Correct. Yes. And that's the hard thing. One of the, with intimate relationships, they can be real personal growth machines. They're going to bring this stuff out of you. Like, you really want to grow as a person, like, get into an intimate relationship. You're going to find out a lot about yourself.
That's the safety. There's no relationship that's going to be perfect. It's the woman who wants to find security and safety with a man who they can screw up with, and so they won't leave them, and they can tolerate that passive aggressiveness sometimes and figure out, okay, really, what's the problem? Let's figure it out, rather than like moving on to the next person, because there's always going to be issues. There's always going to be problems.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so let's bring our video up. I think we're an hour in and we've gotten halfway through it.
Oh, geez. Oh, yeah. Okay, well, we
But
can
I
speed her
think,
up.
yeah, yeah. Or we've only
Hey,
gotten it.
that just goes to show that we have a lot to say.
Absolutely, 100%.
We are done with men who create this toxic environment in the home, and then we're the problem when we leave. We are done with men treating us like second-class citizens. We are not the trash that you take out at the end of the week. We are done with you telling us how much you love us and that we are your ride or die, as much as I hate that statement. And then a week later, you're off with someone else. We are done with the men who are cheating on us and think it's perfectly acceptable. We are done with men ghosting us. We are done with the silent treatment. It's abuse. We are done with the fact that you can't just simply say, you're not the right fit for me. And after a first or second date, you just never respond again.
All right, so I think I don't have a whole lot to say about this portion of it, other than this is not this is not just a men's issue. You have no idea how many men are complaining about the same thing. So I guess really all that I have to kind of say about this is, like, men and women, like, we need to be good enders, and she's absolutely right. Like, we both, and my last relationship that I was in, it was a woman who was in relationships with narcissists, toxic men, by her proclamation, her entire life. And then here I was, a nice guy, and I showed up, and literally a week before we broke up, she wrote me a letter saying, I know that for a fact that I'm going to be able to love you forever. I've loved an asshole for 5 years. Like, there's no doubt that I'm going to be able to love you forever. And a week later, the relationship was over. Right. So this is not a men's issue. This is a societal and a dating issue. And typically, those, you're my ride or die. And then a week later, the relationship's over. Those are typically trauma bonded relationships anyways. And they weren't healthy to begin with. And so, yeah. And then, yes, absolutely. Like, I mean, you don't know how many guys like have first dates set up, and then they go and they show up, or they're en route or whatever. And, and then they're getting flaked on. Like, this is a massive issue for men. I mean, I think, we have a mutual client. I think he said something like 40% of his first dates don't show up. Right. And then, men are getting ghosted and all of that stuff. And so we really need to, again, it comes back to communication and communicating, like, hey, I don't think that you're a right fit for me, or, any of that other stuff. And, I can, I know guys, and I've done this myself. I set up 3 dates for the same night.
Sure.
Right. Because by percentage wise, at least one of them or two of them is going to cancel, right? And so it's like, if I want to go on a date this night, I'm going to set up 3 days.
Crazy! What the heck? Like, the other thing is that we're not prioritizing one person.
Correct.
Right? It's like we're looking at a sales funnel, and you're going to like put all the things in there and hopefully one will fall through. No, that's online dating. That's that's perpetuated. We're all disposable at this
Sure.
point.
Mhm.
So nobody is worth the communicating to.
Sure.
Right? There's going to be another one coming along. No, that's the problem. That's the problem. We're not dealing with our issues, healing, clarifying, and then communicating.
Right.
That's it. That is literally the recipe, people.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree. Okay.
We are done with your childish behavior. We are done with you having to be the center of attention all the time. We are done with being lonely in the relationship. We have all been in relationships, long-term relationships, where we as women feel so lonely because no matter what we do, it's never enough.
All right. This is something that I wanted to address just real quick again. And, you know, and I kind of I addressed this a little bit in the TikTok video that I did recently, and just so we're all clear, like this, and this is where I think Psychology Today got it wrong, and I think that this is where this woman is getting it wrong. Look, the antidote or the solution for loneliness is not an intimate relationship. Okay, if you're feeling, and especially if you're in an intimate relationship and you're feeling lonely, and again, I don't know this woman's story or where she was at in her life at this point. But if you're feeling lonely, you need community. You need a support system. You need people around you. We put way too much emphasis about getting all of our emotional needs met by our one intimate partner, and like we were never designed for that. We're tribal creatures. We're communal creatures. Like we need other people around us, and you have and you've probably come across this as well. But like so many women out there are like, oh, I don't like other women, or I don't, you know, or like I don't have other female friends, like all of that stuff. And it's just like, look, ladies, get some girlfriends, okay? Like find women that you have things in common with, and you know, I won't date a woman if she doesn't have female friends. I will not do it because it is a huge red flag for me. And
that's
so
a definite thing.
Right. And it's just like, you know, and you'll even hear women say like, you know, I will, you know, like guys need to have guy friends or whatever, but like, you know, the same goes for the other person, right? If you're, because that person is, that one single person is always going to be inadequate to meet all of your emotional needs. We have to, right? And it's unfair. It is unloving to say, you're my one and only, you're the only place that I get all of my needs met from. And we were never designed like that. We like men need to have male friends and women need to have female friends, and we need community.
I agree. However, and also you are the only person that knows you best. You spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for your entire lifetime with you. You need to get control over how you can get your needs met, what you need, what makes you happy. There's so many people that need the external to be able to be happy. We need to be internal beings to be able to figure out what we need to make ourselves happy, right?
Yes,
being
absolutely.
clear, again, being clear on what we're about, right? You can't expect someone else to take care of you ever.
Right. Ever. Right.
Not even friends,
absolutely.
right? Like I agree with you on that friend thing, because there is so many men that have said to me like, nope, I want my woman to have a good group of friends. It really, really goes to character, really goes to their independence, their own passions, right? Like we don't need the codependence, as you say, in a relationship. We need to be able to have independence coming together at our hearts,
Absolutely.
creating an H. So anyway, gosh, I'm sweaty. Like I'm like, woo,
It worked out.
and we haven't even said like some sassy stuff.
I know, right? Well, I think we got about a minute left, so let's see what we got here.
We are done with you saying you're not the person that you were anymore. No, the abuse has changed us. We are done constantly being made to feel like we are compared to every other woman on the planet, whether we're as pretty as they are, whether we're as in great a shape as they are. We're just done. We are done being made to feel less by you. We are waiting and wondering, when is it your turn to level up? We've done the work. We've been in therapy. We are trying to figure out how to be better women. And you're just out there wondering why we won't accept you as you are. When's it your turn to level up? When are you going to become emotionally available men so that we want to be with you? And I'm so sorry if you feel lonely. Maybe you should wonder how we've felt all along.
All right. So that is the end of it. And, obviously my response and my profession, and from, obviously I'm dealing with I deal with men who are seeking solutions for their, taking responsibility for their experience. And, again, my part of this is like, okay, well, if you're doing the work and you're healing and all of this stuff, why is it that you continue to attract toxic people into your life? And why do you continue to pick these people, right? And men are doing this, and again, the messaging that men are getting from their men's coaches, from their men's groups, from the books about men and all of that stuff is, like, if you read Dr. Glover's book, or if you read Mark Manson's models, if you read any of that stuff, or, if you're having problems in relationships, men are telling men, like, you're the problem. So this, it's inaccurate the way that this is being portrayed, because men are leveling up. Men are becoming conscious. I brought this up, I believe, in our last call, but I was in a group on Wednesday. There's 30 very masculine men. These are guys who, they're entrepreneurs, they're business owners, but most of them are big yoked out guys with tattoos. And we're sitting there having a conversation with these 30 guys, and the topic of conversation that night was intimacy. And what does intimacy mean to you? And where are you at on a scale of 1 to 10? And what would it take? And we're having these deep, meaningful conversations, right? Where are those women's groups? And where are the women's coaches and all of that that are not telling women, like, the reason that you're having problems is your picker is broken. Like, what are you doing? What are you contributing to the toxicity of the relationships? Why do you continue to attract these kind of people? What do you need to do to actually level up? Not just people to reinforce this idea that everything else is broken and you're not the problem, right? And so, I like I said, I ask my men to assume that they're the problem, right? That does not let women off the hook. You too have to assume that you're the problem. If you continue to have this cyclical experience where things always end up being the same, then where is your accountability? What are you doing to contribute, right? Not like I'm responding to his stuff. No, what are you doing? Where are you missing the mark? What are you doing to contribute to this? Because that's what men are being asked right now. And the messaging that I'm hearing in general is that is men taking accountability. And when they're blaming women or talking about how women or society or the dating world, I mean, I understand that there is some of that going on out there, but there's a lot of the men's work is based around, how do you level up?
Yes. It's clearly stating what you need and how you're going to get there, right? You have two players in this whole group. I agree with you. And dare I say that you work with recovering narcissists?
I do, but that's another point. I mean, that's a good segue into another key point that I'd like to make. And that, again, it kind of goes back to one of the things that I said at the beginning. Look, the reality of the matter is that the narcissist, toxic men, look, there's two things, whether we want to like it or not, that drive men: sex and money. We want resources and we want sex. And the guys who are getting those two needs met are very rarely going to realize that there is a problem. And the narcissist and the toxic guys, because they are, they're confident, that's for sure. They don't care what anybody else thinks about them. They're indifferent. All of these, they're masculine qualities, but they're not healthy masculine qualities, right? They're portraying these things, and they're polarizing to women, and they turn them on, which makes the women feel like there's chemistry there, right? And so it's very rarely, I have had narcissists and all of that stuff that come into my group, or I guess I'm not qualified to diagnose anybody as a narcissist, but I have certainly had people come into my group that were on the other end of the scale. And typically the guys that come into my groups are guys that are having problems, in relationships and with finances and stuff like that, because they're not, and what they're seeing, and what the thing that doesn't make any sense to them is like, I'm being everything that women are telling me that they want me to be, but it's not getting them any results. And what they see and what they experience is that the guys who are being being the opposite
Right.
of what women are saying that they want, they're getting the results, they're getting the promotions, they're starting the businesses, they're the ones that are getting they're getting into relationships, and they're getting all of the sex, and they're getting all of that stuff. And so it's very, very confusing, the messaging that men are getting right now, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to have this conversation around this specific video, is because I wish you were right, Ashley. I wish that you were spot on, and that women are all done with these type of men, and that these were the men out there that were lonely. Unfortunately, the guys who could really use the message that she's putting out there are never going to hear it, because they're getting what they want, which is money, status, and sex. And it's the other guys, right, that are, these guys that we want to refer to as incels or betas or simps or whatever else they want to call them, right, that really have the qualities of the man that you're looking for. They're just lacking one thing, and that's confidence. And so what they really need is an encouraging word. They need other men around them that are positive in their masculinity, and that they can understand it's not bad to be a man. It's not bad to be masculine. Not only that, it's like vital, it's important. Like it's something that you should embrace and celebrate and lean into. And it's not something like, stop it. Stop giving away all of your power. Stop being what you think women want you to be, and become authentic, and learn who you are as a man, the things that you like to do, and really start to build this really, what we call a really great cake of a life, right? Start to exercise regularly, find your vision, start moving towards your vision, get some ambition, like, let's go do scary shit, like do things that scare you, get outside of your comfort zone, have male friends, like do these things. And as a result, you will start to get the things that you want. Because a lot of these guys, what they're doing is they're seeing what's going on right now, and they're moving into pickup game, and they're doing all of these things. They're trying to, work off from the animalistic side, because that's, and anyway, so yeah. And
I think that, on the same message, like, women, you don't have to be angry to share a message. You don't. If you're clear and you're okay with things going on, and you're clear about it, you don't have to be angry when you shout it from the mountaintops, right? Like, you at the end of the day, we both want the same thing. Men and women want to be loved and want to give love. We want to take care, and we want to nurture. At the end of the day, the very basics of what we're all wanting is the same. So let's figure out a great path to get there. And it's not with vinegar, it's more with honey.
Absolutely. I think that's a good place to wrap up.
Thanks, Jesse.
Thank you.